Hey guys, Scott here. I apologize for the change in surroundings. This isn't where I usually record, but my mom is working from home now. Sanford has told all their employees, all of their out-of-hospital employees, they can work from home from now on. So until such time that changes, she is coming to the computer room, and so I'm stuck filming elsewhere. So I will hopefully have a better setup somewhere else next time. This is just sort of last minute. I'm currently sitting in the game room at my house, hence the Galaga stickers and the comics on the back wall. Room's kind of a mess, but it'll have to work for now. So, yeah, I don't have a lot to talk about today. There's one major piece of news I want to break down and dissect, but I won't go too in depth. So this should be a shorter video. I have something else in the works starting Friday, actually. For those of you who like longer form videos or podcasts, I will have something else to work on. I'm still working on some of the details, but it should be good to go by Friday, so I will talk about it later in the week. Tomorrow, actually, I'm appearing on somebody else's podcast, so I will link it. Once that's up, I'll link it probably Friday. It should be up. So that'll be fun. If any of you want to get involved in this, let me know. I don't know if any of you have something like you really want to talk to me about or some conversation you want to have on camera, but if you do, let me know. I'm always happy to have call-ins or maybe a couple months down the line a live stream. I don't know what I'd live stream, but something like that. But yeah, other than that, I don't have any updates before we get started with the video. So let's get started. Okay, so the big news I referred to just now is that Bernie Sanders has dropped out of the Democratic presidential race. The race for the nomination, I suppose, which is pretty big news. It was clear, honestly, a month ago at this point, that he wasn't going to win. After Super Tuesday, he didn't really have a chance for the nomination. But he sort of hung on because he was hoping that maybe something would happen, especially with this pandemic. He was hoping that maybe Biden would fall apart. Apparently, he realized today that Biden wasn't going to fall apart, and so he dropped out. He has yet to endorse Biden, but he has dropped out, which means that Joe Biden, former vice president and senator from Maryland, will be the presumptive Democratic nominee, unless the convention just blows up and goes crazy. Which means our choices for president will be A, crazy creepy old man who doesn't understand basic English, or B, a crazy, creepy old man who doesn't understand basic English. So, go America. I'm so happy those are our choices. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Bernie Sanders and his ideology, because I think he was very popular among young people, like millennials and Gen Z and our demographic, and I wanted to talk about why that's not a good thing, because Bernie Sanders was horribly flawed as a candidate, just from top to bottom. I can only think of one good idea he had, and that was criminal justice reform for drug offenses and legalizing marijuana. Those were really the only two good policies he had. Every other policy he proposed was horrible. And so I want to talk about why socialism is bad. We'll break that down in this video on why a lot of millennials believe in Bernie Sanders and why they shouldn't, and how that's a failure of our education system. So Bernie Sanders, self-proclaimed socialist, and he is. A lot of pundits will say no, he's not actually a socialist. He's a social democrat, which is a form of government popularized in the Scandinavian countries with a huge welfare state, so very tax-heavy government control over a lot of key aspects of your life, sort of cradle to grave. As soon as you're born, all the way to your die, you get government tax dollars. And his policies that he proposed were social democratic in nature. So, free college, a taxpayer-funded college, government-controlled healthcare, so Medicare for all, nationalizing the banks. He talked about that. He wanted the IRS to offer a banking system or a basic bill system. Some of these major, he wanted government to step in parts of the energy industry, the Green New Deal, and nationalize a lot of key industries for global warming, to stop global warming and such. So some of those are social democratic policies. In rhetoric, though, and as an actual person, Bernie Sanders is a straight socialist, and I mean that in the classical sense of the term. Seizing the means of production, the government takes control of large swaths of the economy, communist Russia-style socialism. A lot of pundits, both on the left and the right, will say, no, he's not actually that bad. He's not that. He just says he is. He actually is. I mean, if you look at his rhetoric and his past policies and his love for communist Russia, I mean, he honeymooned in the Soviet Union back in the 80s. Who does that? Like, who gets married and says, you know where I really want to go? Siberia. That's a nice place. Let's go to Moscow, where the bread lines are 1,000 feet long every day. On a good day. I mean, the only person who would do something like that is somebody who actually genuinely believed in the ideology, and that's Bernie Sanders. He is a genuine socialist. Like, if he had all of the power tomorrow, we would be living in a communist nation. And I don't say that like your grandfather, trying to scare you, and that is a genuine statement of fact, because that is what Sanders actually believes. I mean, he's to his core, he thinks that capitalism is bad, that the government is good, and that it should control all aspects of life. And if it controlled all aspects of life, things would be better. Now, that is patently false for a variety of reasons. Principle of which the government sucks everything. I mean, it is garbage at the job it tries to do. It doesn't do anything good. It doesn't. Okay, let me take that back. The government does a select few things good. And those are the things that it is entrusted to do, and that by nature it should be doing. The sort of things that you cannot privatize because they don't work in a private market. The judicial system is one of those things. Crime is not something you can privatize. It has to be democratically controlled by a government, because crime, the modern basis of crime as we know it, is a communal thing. It's not eye for an eye, you killed my son, so I'm going to kill your son, so you're going to kill my daughter, sort of thing like you'd see in Sicily and the Mafia. Communal justice stands upon the idea that if you hurt me, you've hurt the community at large, and so the community at large gets to decide your punishment. That has to be controlled by the government, just by nature. The military, another example. National defense is not an individual thing. You cannot privatize national defense, because the government, just basic governmental theory is that the government has a monopoly on force. It has the monopoly to force you to do things. You cannot privatize that. I, as an individual, cannot force you to do something. That would mean I'd violate your rights. A business cannot force you to do something. That would mean it violates your rights. A government shouldn't force you to do things, but it should have that ability, which is what a military is. That is the personification and the actualization of a monopoly on force. Outside of those two things, there's very, very little that a government is authorized to do, and that it can do better than the free market. Bernie Sanders doesn't understand that, which is why when he talks about Medicare for All in college, which is the two things I'm going to break down for you guys, he talks about it in terms of like it's a right. You have a right to healthcare, you have a right to college. No, you don't. And rights are not positive. They're not given to you, and they don't come at the expense of other people. So a right to healthcare, right? By saying you have a right to healthcare, you are saying you have the right to force a doctor to take care of you. Because at its simplest, that's what that means. If you say you have a right to college, you are saying you have a right to force a professor to teach you. You don't. Those rights don't come from nowhere, and you forcing a doctor to take care of you or a professor to teach you violates their rights of autonomy and of expression and of choice and of liberty and just their basic freedoms. which supersede your right to healthcare. It also doesn't work as a practical matter. So, forgetting rights, nationalizing healthcare doesn't make it appear. Like, the problem in America is not that we have a high demand, that we need to increase demand for healthcare, right? Basic Econ 101, supply and demand. The problem in America is not that we need to increase demand, which is what nationalizing would do. If you made sure that everybody has a right and doesn't have to pay for it, you increase demand dramatically, because now everybody's going to want surgeries that they can get, even if they don't need them, right? That's just basic knowledge. Same thing happens for college. If you nationalize college and make sure everybody can do it without having to pay for it, so many more people are going to want to go to college. The problem is not that we have a lack of demand, it's that we have a lack of supply. Nationalizing something like that doesn't create supply. Saying you have a right to healthcare does not create more healthcare. It doesn't create more doctors, doesn't build more hospitals. The free market does that. If you incentivize people to become doctors, right? That's why doctors are paid so much, because there's high incentive, because there's a high demand for doctors, which means the market has allocated a high income to doctors for their services. Another part of that is that you have to go to college for 8, 10, 12 years. If you can spend that much money on college, you have to be paid a lot on the back end. If you nationalize healthcare and you make sure everybody's paid Medicare rates, which is what he wants to do, Medicare reimburses like 60%, 70% of all healthcare bills. So doctors actually take a loss when they treat patients on Medicare. If you have everybody on Medicare, nobody's going to want to be a doctor, because you cannot be a doctor on $40,000 a year. It's just not worth it. Similarly, college is the same way. If you nationalize college, a bunch of people are going to want to go to college, and a bunch of people that may not need to go to college will choose to go to college because it's free, and we just don't have the infrastructure capacity for everybody to do college. Professors also have to make money. Universities have to make money. The reason college is so expensive is not because the market failed, it's because the market isn't working. We don't operate in a free market system when it comes to schooling. The amount of student loans from a government, whether it's state or national, has risen dramatically over the last 40 years. And when the government writes a blank check and says, we will give the student as much money as they need to go to college, right? Because that's what the government does. You can borrow as much money as you need, up to like a really high point. I think there's a limit, but it's incredibly high from the government to go to college. Colleges look at that and say, okay, well, we're going to charge a really high number, a really high dollar amount then. That's why colleges have gotten more expensive. Not because the market has failed, it's because the market hasn't been allowed to work. Bernie Sanders would just make that worse. If we make college tuition free, or just free overall, that just makes it worse. One, because we can't afford that. As a country, we cannot afford to pay that much money. And two, because now you've got everybody demanding to go to college. And nobody's going to want to be a professor. Nobody's going to want to open up a university, because you can't make money that way. Let's see, what else? Actually, that's it, I think, for today. That was a little shorter video. I wish I could have gone more in depth on socialism, and in a later video or podcast, I will. I'm just short on time today, so I imagine there will be a lot of disagreement with this video, with the topic of this video, just because a lot of you guys are young, and I imagine a good chunk of you guys, maybe not a majority, but a good chunk of you liked Bernie Sanders and like his ideas. Feel free to text me. It's a little annoying when I just see people posting things on their story, attacking me. Like, that's not... I don't really care, but, it would be more mature of you to just text me and tell me why you disagree, and not rip on me on some social media platform. If you really have a disagreement with me, you're welcome to call me on the next time I make a video. We can have the conversation and we'll upload it and people can watch it. But, again, if you have a disagreement with me on this, go ahead and text me. I'll be happy to respond to them tomorrow. I will probably do another questionnaire video tomorrow, so I'll put up a question thing. Send me your questions, I'll answer them all. Friday, I'm gonna do something special on the channel. It'll be a more in-depth topic, which you guys may find boring, but I feel like it's worth discussing. So, until tomorrow, be safe, and I will see you guys in the next video.